Great segue in for us. Thank you, Sarah. We are the problem. We are from estates. We have infiltrated you, and we're here to talk about our side of the fence, really. So yeah, I'm Rob Collins, Head of Smart Technology at the University of Bristol. I also hate the phrase smart, but it sells some ships.
My name's Oliver Ramsey. I am data manager within Campus Division, so looking after the data vision and strategy, but specifically for our estates department. So we call it Campus Division at the University of Bristol. And yeah, I think the kind of running theme today is that relationship between kind of IT and the deliverables for IT, or whatever it may be called at your institution, and Campus Division or estates. Smart campus, again, difficult terminology. We're not a fan of it, but whatever it might be, smart, digital, it is a deliverable that has to be taken forward together. It's got to be taken forward by estates and IT working in tandem, because there are key outputs for both areas. From our experience, that's certainly the case. Yeah, we recognise the irony as well. We're talking about collaboration, and you've got two of us from the University of Bristol. We don't have someone from IT with us. So that irony is not lost on us. We're still working on that collaboration piece. And we thought, oh yeah, we'll put together some slides that might kind of highlight what we're doing well, perhaps, or what we've had some challenges and some successes around some of these elements that IT are supporting us with from a Campus Division perspective. But actually, I think maybe we might put the question back to some of you guys. So, out of interest, hands up, who here is IT within a university? Who here is campus within a university? Nice.
Got some friendly faces.
Friendly faces.
Hopefully.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that there's a big kind of shift one way or the other, and similarly there are other conferences and events that are more campus or estates heavy. Some conferences are more IT heavy. And actually, I think it'd be quite interesting if there was one that had a real balance and a real blend. We've been speaking to some other attendees that have kind of remembered events of the past, and I think that's the key thing, is having voices in the room together, mutual respect for each other's domain expertise, within IT, delivering a network. We're not network people. We try and learn bits and pieces, but we're not network people. But equally, on the IT side, an IT professional might not understand how a space is being run, might not understand how a space is being managed, and the plant, and all of the kind of complication that goes behind the scenes.
I think to Sarah's point around, have you got that wraparound? You've got all that operational technology, you've got that SCADA system. It goes in, it runs all your buildings, all your equipment, does very clever, snazzy things, but has it got that wraparound? We've used that as our foundation before we even start thinking about smart. Like, well, let's get that right. That's already here. We need to make sure that's operating correctly and that's as secure as it can be. We've made steps towards that, and we'll try to touch on some of those points as we go through the slide, but we are not there yet. There's things we still see, and I think that's where we need to build that collaboration a lot tighter with IT, because we do have expertise in the area. I think just having general conversations today, well, you're not shadow IT. I'm sort of, not the counter argument to that. It's like, I can tell you how this room is operating, how it's controlled environmentally. Could IT do that? I'll have enough knowledge, maybe a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, but have enough knowledge to try and interface with IT and talk some of their language to try and overcome some of the hurdles that we've faced in years gone by. So I think that's the clear definition for us. So we talk about smart buildings, smart campuses, smart and digital campuses. We are one slice of that cake. We are the smart building element. We can get our buildings operating better, smarter, but we can't do the whole journey ourselves. So we're just one piece of a bigger jigsaw, one corner, maybe of four sides. So
we'll kick off by kind of talking you through some of the background. So what are we working on? What does our estate look like? We've got about 400 buildings at Bristol. We've got quite a large estate, so that accounts for about 600,000 square meters gross internal area. And that's a mixed estate as well. We have some very new buildings, some very recently refurbished buildings, but we also have a lot of aging legacy estate at the same time. We've got buildings that might be grade 1 listed, grade 2 listed. So they present their own challenge. We've got a brand new campus under construction as well, so that's a huge capital project. That is going to be a brand new building, should be a smart building, whatever that might mean. We're quite lucky. We had a vision and strategy that was published just before our team came into existence, so we're quite a new team that was a bit of an amalgam of different functions that already existed. So we have a vision and strategy, talks about world-class campus, world-class teaching and learning, that kind of thing. So it kind of gave us the threads to pull on when trying to work out what smart campus means for the University of Bristol. And I think that's the key thing, is recognising smart is different for every organisation. For some places it might be more of a student-focused app, and there have been some really cool things on show over the last 2 days on that front. From an estates department it might be slightly different. So what does smart mean for us? Well, we've started out with presentation bingo. We've got a word cloud, ideas that might be associated with smart from an estates perspective, cost reduction, sustainability, having dashboards, connectivity, connected devices, your IWMS. We've kind of taken a number of these concepts and we've pulled out the things that we think a smart building delivers for us. Comfort. Are our users comfortable in the space? Is the air quality good enough? Is it warm enough or cool enough? Carbon, obviously, reducing our carbon emissions. Compliance. Are we complying with our organisational policy, our space temperature policy, for example? Are we complying with that? Are we complying with our legislative responsibilities? Are we complying with certain requirements for certificates or research certifications, essentially? Cost effective, reducing our cost base, reducing our operational costs and connectivity. So again, these are very campus focused, but we'll kind of come to where IT comes into it. Just to kind of continue setting the scene, what does smart look like for the university? Well, we don't want 400 digital twins. We don't want 400 smart buildings. We think that we can do quite a lot with buildings that are smarter. We really like Tim's concept about the journey to a smarter campus. Our IQ might be 9 at the moment, not quite 10, but we might get it to 40.
I think that point around 30,000 sensors, 7,000 IoT devices, we're not ready to digest that amount of information or look after that amount of information, keep it secure. Less is more, and I think we've identified that we also need to upskill, particularly the estates teams, in more IT and more digital sort of skill sets, because they're quite happy to walk around with a notepad still, and we're talking about IoT devices. It's a big step. We can't go from 0 to 10 in one day. I think it's too big of a step. So we're very aware of that, and I make sure we do things in the right areas. And it's obviously a very difficult conversation for the head of smart technology at the University of Bristol to say, you don't want smart buildings, you don't want digital twins, you want to do just enough to be able to hit our strategies and our requirements. But we can still do exciting things within that space. So yeah, the slide always goes down really well when you present it to management, but in reality we can't afford to do digital twins across 300 odd buildings. So why make an aspiration that's never going to be attainable?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that attainability. It's that what can we deliver? What are we capable of? And the reality is we came into existence about 2 years ago, and since then it's been a lot of challenges. So metering, it's not very sexy, not very exciting talking about metering. But if you're talking about carbon and you're talking about cost, you need to know a lot about the actual energy consumption off the back of it. Imperial's Power BI report with carbon, we'd love to have that. But we just don't have the metering at the moment. We just don't know how much our buildings are using. So we're putting a lot of time and effort into that. But with it comes some IT challenges.
Yeah. So everything we've put up, we thought, how can we link that back into IT and the help we need from that area? So metering, so when we came in and we started to look at that, a lot of our metering was be using 2G, not 3G, not 4G, not 5, 2G modems. I don't know if you've seen Bristol's estate, it's quite aged. It's got it's a quite hilly area as well. So a lot of our space is actually below ground. So our data gaps were massive around that. And when we challenged that, well, why can't we put that onto the IT network or the converged network for IT equipment which we've got now? I think in previous times, the estates department didn't have the maturity to ask it in the right guys, and it was like, no, that's not safe. We're not doing that. New approach, better discussions. Yeah, we can do that, but these are the things we need to put into place. So we've now managed to get our metering onto that converged network with the collaboration of IT. Going back to the SCADA thing again, so we had, not too long ago, we had Windows XP's systems running some of our SCADA or building energy management systems or IoT device sort of PLC controllers, whatever you want to call them, they're all the same sort of thing. In the corner of offices, covered in dust and books and God knows what else, like rusty pipework. But the thing that kicked off our sort of journey, it wasn't smart, it was cyber. There is a massive risk here. We have got aged systems, we've got stuff running on XP. We're just about to move to Windows 10. So the business case, actually, it was cyber security and threat that really managed to get us moving. So again, foundational, like get the base level right, and that's allowed us to now build on from that. So that's a really good, important point of where we've needed to work with IT and try and do that communication around, this is what we've got. I know this is going to be very difficult, but we need to get to a better place together. What else have we got, Ollie?
Well, so the other side of the coin is you can do all this nice stuff behind the scenes, the ugly bits and pieces. You can have these fan coil units speaking much more closely with the ventilation system, heating, cooling the space appropriately, but unless you can demonstrate that, unless you can actually measure the change, unless you can present the story to your stakeholders, it's not pointless, that's a bit nihilistic, but it doesn't sell itself. Instead, you need the data to understand what you've done, understand the continual changes that you can make, and actually communicate what the successes have been and where to go next. And it's kind of an emergent environment as well. So similarly, in terms of Birmingham's kind of campus API, the IT department and the estates department don't know all of the opportunities there. The opportunities will be emergent, and it's very similar for us. The opportunities from our smart infrastructure will be emergent to some extent, but we need to have the architecture underneath to support that. So you've got to start with a data strategy. You've got to understand what are we going to do with our data, and you've got to have a tool to present it as well. You're going to need a business intelligence tool. So 2 years ago, we didn't have a data strategy and we didn't have a business intelligence tool. So again, it's kind of getting the building blocks in place. However, again, I think the kind of the positive is that you're not starting from square one. We're not starting from scratch. So there are a lot of opportunities out there to align. So at the university, we kind of took stock essentially of what else is going on. There's lots of stuff going on IT, a brand new modern network program. So delivering that infrastructure, that digital plumbing of the building that we then need to be users of. A Finder app, so helping students find spaces, helping students navigate the university, digital wayfinding as well on the list. Various bits and pieces that we could then kind of tie ourselves to, or at least put our hands up and say that this could be a kind of shared interest, to again try and find the opportunity to bring campus and IT close together.
I think on that modern network program as well, project, it is a program. It's important. We are a stakeholder in that. It's an IT infrastructure project, but we have to be informed enough to know or ask what the requirement is. So yes, we got into a lot better place. We got rid of all the Windows XP machines. We went up into the cloud. We managed to get that integration layer done as a piece of work. But okay, what happens if I go into this space, there's a data point there and I plug in? There's a potential that you could potentially just jump around the whole network. So as part of that modern network program, can we do MAC authentication? Can we do VLAN, wireless VLANs to increase our sort of deployability? So making sure we fed into that and said, well, these are requirements we'd really like Wi-Fi access beacons. Can we build in Bluetooth capability, wayfinding bits and pieces like that? So I think if that program had happened 5 years ago, those campus or estates requirements wouldn't have fed into that as much. So it's always trying to find your next angle, your opportunity to try and drive that innovation. And I think it's an ongoing piece of work, but it's definitely something that's helped us today.
working with IT colleagues, using the provisions available through IT, getting that out. What have we achieved so far? What have we managed to do? Well, we've got a brand new BEMS system. So this is the user interface. These are screenshots from it. So we've got an air handling unit on the left. We've got the homepage on the top. We've got our grow dome, so within our life sciences building. So we've got, academic stakeholdership. We've got facility stakeholdership, and this is a digital system. This couldn't have existed without a major IT project that took a number of years, a large amount of capital to replace existing controllers and to kind of upgrade what we had. But now we've got quite a nice interface. It's been developed as well sympathetically for an estates department that might have varying levels of digital literacy as well. And that's another kind of challenge that we've got within IT. Of course, there's a great deal of technical expertise when it comes to computing, but not so much in estates. So everything needs to be scalable. Everything needs to be easy to navigate, easy to work with. So that's been kind of one big change that is kind of a major enabler. This is our middleware layer. So we've seen a couple of presentations where it's talking about that kind of big middleware package. For us, we've got a master systems integrator, and that's kind of been a huge enabler for the team coming into existence. We've got a data architecture. So it's interesting. I think we drew this up probably about 18 months ago or so, and again, you've seen a version of it before. I think it's kind of very similar to Tim's, but pivoted 90 degrees, starting at the bottom, working to the top. It's kind of a sign of convergent evolution to some extent. So you've got all your systems, you've got all your data sources at the bottom. You've got your various communication methods into this kind of common data environment, this middleware layer, this master systems integrator, apply an analytics layer, and eventually you might get some outputs. Eventually you might get some system functionality, whether it be an app. You might get some reporting capabilities. You might get charts or dashboards. Dashboards gets a lot of people excited, but you need to have an idea. And again, I think being upfront about the fact that it's not necessarily going to ever look like this, but it's an idea, it's a start, it's something to work towards, getting something down on paper that is agreed by your IT services and estates to kind of work together on. Because these platforms, some of them are estates managed, some of them will be IT managed, some of them will be managed by, it might be registry or it might be student experience or whatever certain stakeholders you might have at your institution. So there's something in there for everyone, but you need to kind of have a kind of unified idea on what that's going to look like. In addition, we've got a new network architecture that came with that new BEMS system and that project.
Yeah, so again, collaboration with IT. It's actually enhanced a little bit from this, and Ollie will touch on that after, but this might be more relevant to you guys than it is to me. When that first got flashed up to me, I was like, what the hell does that mean? But IT were kind enough to take me on that journey and sort of give me that sort of knowledge. And I think touching back on that cyber thing, our head of cyber was like, command and control, keep it in our envelope. We don't want, where possible, outputs and inputs coming from a outside environment. Let's try and keep it contained, and we'll try and keep it managed. So it's been hopefully designed to be secure, but we can still gain remote access to those systems via some of those RDS machines, basically. So again, scalable. It's all on VM, and the network architecture sort of down on the device level is all. There was a tendency to go for sort of flat networks for sort of IoT, OT devices, but the shift's now gone back to segmented sort of slices. So luckily we were too slow to move, so we've stayed in segmented VLAN. So we've got VLANs almost one per building, so it's quite segmented. So if something should go wrong, hopefully it shouldn't affect the whole network. It's got protection by sort of, not by design, by luck. So yeah, that's been really good for us. That means we've managed to get over 80,000 points of data up into the cloud, into our data center. It's an off-prem data center, Vertislau, but it's still our data. It hasn't gone outside of the envelope. So that's been a real benefit for us. We don't use all that data yet. So I think Ollie will touch on what we do with that data, but we only give Ollie that data when he's happy with the data.
Yeah, so within that application, so you've got the application and the data stored on a local server, but that is a proprietary platform. So the data structure, it's relational, but it's not easy to get into. So we've got an API that instead pulls it out and pulls it into an MS SQL server. So it's a little bit more able to be interpreted and integrated into a business intelligence tool like Power BI. So we've got API, SQL, and then a gateway from our local SQL server into our Power BI environment. So we're able to pull data out when we're ready and when we're happy for it. So it's got to be validated, it's got to be relevant, it's got to be important to our business function. And we're able to produce some nice outputs. So we're able to produce some pretty colourful charts that are hopefully going to be someday useful. So this is an example of kind of a proof of concept that we did in one lecture theatre. You've got an air handling unit serving it with fresh air. So it pulls in fresh air from outside, takes it to a set point temperature, whether it be through heating or cooling, and then pumps the fresh air into the space, and then it draws the air in the space that might be used by that point out into atmosphere. So this air handling unit, pre-COVID, running flat out. Lecture theatre was 286 capacity. We were running that air handling unit flat out between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. every day, because we always wanted to be, preparing as if the space was fully occupied. But of course, it's not fully occupied. During COVID, it was empty for a long time. During holidays, it's empty. Even during the teaching time, the secret that only some people are willing to accept is that students don't really go to lectures quite often. A lot of our lecture theatres are quite empty. So why are we servicing this space for 286 people when actually we might have 30 people in there? So just looking at the line graphs on the right, one's carbon, one's cost, and they track identically, understandably. So the purple line is tracking straight upwards. That's what we used to do. And then all we did was we interlocked this air handling unit with some footfall sensors. So if there's someone in the space, ramp up. If there's not someone in the space, ramp down. And we've been tracking at that blue line since. So this is as of yesterday, this data. And the light blue line is kind of where we've got to. That represents a 40% reduction of energy consumption on that one space. Nominal figures, not big, a little under 500 quid in 18 months, but imagine scaled across 600 centralised teaching spaces, 40% energy reduction. We think we could take it further as well, so taking into account that comfort element. So comfort and cost and carbon kind of play off against one another. If you want to reduce your energy consumption, you might be sacrificing comfort. We wanted to be cautious of that at first, so we were a bit tentative. We think we can take it further than 40%. We reckon we can take it down to 60% reduction on that one space. The byproduct of that, we've got footfall sensors in that space. So now we can also look at space utilisation, and that got picked up on by senior management. So they told us that there are a couple of professional services offices that we might want to put footfall sensors on. So we did that, put some footfall sensors on. That again is integrated into our middleware layer. It's then pushed out to SQL, pushed out to Power BI. This is a building with capacity of 400. It's all office space. Tracking data since the 13th of August. So far, the most people we've seen in the building is 248. Very much under capacity, or very much underutilised. Our overall utilisation for that space, 17%. So it tells a story, it gives you a number, it kind of validates what is suspected. And yeah, we've not rolled this out very widely. We've only put it in 3 proof of concept buildings so far. But again, it's a tool that could be used, could be made more widely available.
I think just on the theme of that is, what's the minimum amount of tech we can put in to get some of these outputs? We don't want to no point putting 20 sensors in there. What's the minimum amount of technology we can put into a space, and then what can we draw out of it? Let's use every means possible to get as much value out of it. Because sometimes we might actually have to increase the energy consumption of space to make it more comfortable so that people use that space. But we might get that data from an occupancy sensor. Well, people aren't using that. Oh, and it's cold in there, and the CO2 is really high. So, well, actually, let's service that area better. It might cost us more in utilities, but at least that space is being used. It's better than that space just sitting there empty. So, yeah, it's trying to just always look at it from lots of different angles. It's one piece of data, can do lots of different functions, and that's where we started now asking the wider university, like, we've put this equipment in for this strategy, but what can it do for you? And I think that's one element we're waiting for the university to come back to us and say, what else can we get from this?
Yeah. So yeah, final products will flash up on screen. Metering, like we said, It's something that we had limited availability on. It's important, it's not sexy, it's not exciting, but we need it if we want to understand how how our estate will work. So, huge opportunities for us. We want to understand how the plant might be running, but we also might want to understand the PUE of our data centers, for example. We can't do that unless the building's metered and the data center's metered. So we've been pulling all of our meters and sub-meters into one report. Classically, we might have 5 different metering systems, but the joy of a business intelligence tool is that we can have it all filtered into one report. So this has gone down really, really well, and our FMs are hopefully going to start using this to understand what's going on in their building.
I think that one thing we forgot to mention around the data is having that common theme, so metadata, so something that's identifiable on that data piece across all those platforms, so that when it comes into that central pot, it could be tied together. That took us a while to get. There's lots of sort of industry-renowned sort of schemas, but none of them do everything. So we took bits of each one. I think this is probably a common thing you hear from lots of people that work in this sort of areas. Like, we've just had to build our own that suits our spaces, which isn't perfect. We always like to use industry standard open sort of protocols, but for this instance, it wasn't working for us.
Yeah. So our final slide, and kind of thinking about the future. So we've done bits and pieces really. We're kind of at that proof of concept stage, early rollout, and kind of for us that challenge is identifying how we can work more closely with IT essentially. So we've presented, a number of campus division initiatives, but importantly, none of that would have happened without the IT infrastructure underneath and without having people in IT to enable that. And having people that are kind of willing and passionate on this subject matter to take it forward. So we've got, hopefully in a moment, coming back on the slide, a number of different initiatives and work streams that will be driven forwards by either campus division, whether it be a campus division smart team. So, starting off, we work for the same organisation with IT, and it's interesting the reflection from I think it was Mark at PTS earlier. We work almost more closely with another estates division in another university than we will with an IT department in our own university. But we work for the same organisation. We've got the same vision and strategy. We've got the same, we call it the campus framework. That's our campus strategy. IT have a digital strategy, but they're both feeding into the same initiative, and they're both going to be touching on the same themes on that right-hand side. And it's kind of like thinking about what that team delivery needs to look like. There's a smart technology team, essentially smart infrastructure, IoT, whatever you might want to call it. That might sit within campus, it might sit within IT, but they will have their own work stream. You might have a digital technologies team, whether it be about, looking at your IWMS or asset booking or building information modeling, wayfinding. They might sit within campus or IT, but they're all working towards the same thing. You might have your kind of more classical IT provisions in terms of networking and data programs and AV, etc. But they're all feeding into a kind of a common goal, and it's about kind of bringing that together. So, a reflection on kind of what I've taken away from the last couple of days is how interesting some of the setups are in different universities. UCL having that product focus, very interesting having that kind of expertise from 2 different departments, but embedding it within that kind of product kind of envelope. A smart campus is a product, you could argue it, or you could kind of present it in that form, and actually you're going to need expertise from 2 completely different kind of domains, but it's about finding the middle of the room, finding the common language, having someone from a networks background able to speak to someone from a mechanical, electrical and plumbing background, and having them being able to speak in the same language about the same things.
Yeah, I think something that's been really sort of prevalent in my mind for the last 12 months is that governance piece and that wraparound. I don't want to put 12,000 sensors in if I can't look after them, or I can't get support from IT, because it will just turn into another rat's nest. I'd rather put 3 sensors in and have that wraparound support and make sure they're secure and they're doing their function. Great, we put logic metering in. If we get an issue and that drops off the network for whatever reason, at the moment there's no clear SLA or OLA around how we get that back online. We just put a ticket into the ether, and at some point we'll get it back. So if we want to do smart campus and we want to create automation, Is that good enough? Probably not. We need to work out how far can we go and how much can IT support us on that. So if something does go down, how soon can we get it back up? Or are there things that we can check before IT need to get involved so that they're 3 steps ahead of where they are and sort of relieves pressure on them because they're very busy. Like there's no doubt about it. I guess that's probably a common theme across all IT departments in this sector. Very busy, under-resourced, lots of challenges themselves. So where does this sit with them? Feels like it sits in the right place with them, but this is the next step. And I think that sort of the good news story is that those conversations are starting to happen now. We've got our first meeting with the CPO and CIO and myself looking at, okay, how do we start to build some of this stuff out? And I think once we get that, that's when we get a little bit more excited.
Cool. That's it from us. Happy to have any thoughts or questions.
Okay, I'll take it. That's the guys why just turned me up. You mentioned earlier on that you are more likely to talk to other institutions, estates departments, than you are your own IT department. So what are you guys doing to break down the walls between yourselves and your IT department to get that conversation starting?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so I've done it. I've gone down the performance route. So I have to set your yearly goals. I've set one of my yearly goals is to make that happen. Fully aware that I don't have all the tools or levers to make that happen, but I need to try and engage senior management that if you want these things, this needs to happen. Cake. Go and have a chat.
Always
have
good.
Some cake, yeah. So head of cyber. Bonnie, would you like a coffee? Can we go and have a chat? This is what I'm thinking. There's no official route for this at the moment, but stop me before I go too far wrong, or am I onto the right sort of thing? So yeah, cake, coffee, and tying it into some strategic objectives.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
Finding that passionate person as well, we've kind of got some good headway on that, like kind of finding someone that is equally as enthused and keen maybe from the other side. And obviously coming to something like this as well, like obviously it's an IT heavy event, but unless we try and reach out to kind of the IT expertise, we'll never bridge that gap unless we're willing to come to the middle of the room as well. So yeah, a bit of that.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah.